Saving species. You might think that plants and wildlife living in Illinois are able to survive just fine on their own. You see a lot of plants when you travel around the state. You may see a lot of some kinds of animals too. Some species in Illinois struggle to survive, though. Our landscape changes every day from natural processes and from human actions. Even species found statewide in large numbers are helped by actions to keep their populations in check. Saving species in Illinois is only possible through the cooperation of many organizations, groups, and individuals. The Illinois Department of Natural Resources is one of these organizations. Let's look at the history of saving species in Illinois, how IDNR staff members are working to save species today, and how you can take positive actions to benefit wildlife and plants too. The history of conservation in Illinois. In 1600, the land that was to become Illinois was covered with 21 million acres of prairie and 14 million acres of forest. There were wetlands too, and plentiful wildlife. The only people were Native Americans. They provided for all of their needs with the resources available to them. They harvested only those animals needed to supply food, clothing, and shelter. By the late 1600s, people originally from Europe began arriving in this land. They were missionaries and traders. The missionaries came to spread the religious beliefs. The traders came to find furs and other natural resources. Why did they want furs? Fur-bearing animals had been overhunted in Europe. Fur was scarce. Fur was needed to make coats, men's top hats, and other clothing. Furs were a great source of money for the fur traders who would kill the animals for their fur and purchase furs from Native Americans, then sell the furs and ship them to Europe in boats. American beaver pelts were the ones most in demand for a long time. There were many animals and few people in North America at this time. After a few years, people from the eastern part of what would become the United States began to move to the Illinois Territory to make money from trapping beavers and other animals. There seemed to be a huge supply of beavers, and everyone wanted to trap as many as they could. No one knew much about the beaver's life cycle or the value that it provided to the environment. Thomas Jefferson, our country's president from 1801 to 1809, encouraged everyone to trap beavers and sell them. It was one of the main methods to make money from other countries. The same type of process went on throughout the 1700s and 1800s for other animals too. People thought the supply of animals and plants was unlimited. They were wrong. Populations of many species, including beavers, declined so much from hunting and trapping that it was difficult for them to survive in Illinois. Greater prairie chickens, elk, gray wolves, beavers, passenger pigeons, and white-tailed deer are just a few of the species that were affected. Beaver populations were so low in the early 1900s, they may have been eliminated from the state. Passenger pigeons became extinct in the early 1900s. Greater prairie chickens are an endangered species in Illinois. Their populations have not recovered from this devastation or from the habitat loss that also was taking place. There were no state, federal, or international conservation laws to protect species in the 1600s, 1700s, and most of the 1800s. With wildlife species becoming rare in the state, people began to see the need for rules to help protect our natural heritage. The first conservation law in Illinois was passed in 1853, but it applied to just a few animal species and only covered a few counties in northern and central Illinois. It was changed to cover the entire state in 1873. In 1871, the first limited state fish conservation law was passed. Conservation-related changes began happening regularly in the early 1900s. The first federal law to help save wildlife was passed in 1900. Known as the Lacey Act, it made transport of live or dead wild animals or their parts across state borders without a federal permit illegal. It was also illegal to import foreign wildlife without a government permit. The Department of Conservation was formed in 1925, and law enforcement was added to this agency's duties in 1928. The Department of Conservation became the Illinois Department of Natural Resources in 1995. Many federal and state laws were passed in the 1900s to help save wildlife, plants, and natural areas. Two of those laws are still very important to conservation of species in Illinois. The Federal Aid and Wildlife Restoration Act was passed in 1937. It is known as the Pittman-Robertson Act for U.S. Senator Key Pittman of Nevada and U.S. Representative A. Willis Robertson of Virginia, who worked to make this legislation possible. This law places a federal tax on all sales of sporting arms and ammunition. It is an 11% tax with money returned to the states based on the number of licensed hunters and the total land area of the state. Funds are used for hunter safety education programs, surveys and investigations, land acquisition, and research. The funds also provide federal aid to states for management and restoration of wildlife. The Federal Aid and Sport Fish Restoration Act, known as the Dingell Johnson Act for its sponsors, U.S. Senator Edwin Johnson of Colorado and U.S. Representative John Dingell Sr. of Michigan, was passed in 1950. This law places a 10% federal tax on fishing equipment. It provides federal funding to states for management and restoration of sport fish in the marine and fresh waters of the United States. In 1929, beavers were reintroduced to Illinois. With the enforcement of hunting laws and with management of this species and its habitat, beavers were able to reproduce and spread throughout the state once again. Their population increased enough so that trapping of beavers was legalized. There will never be as many beavers in Illinois as there were in the 1600s, but we can be pleased that people made a difference in order to bring this and other parts of our natural heritage back to the state. Conservation today. Biologists manage populations of animals and plants. They have several methods that can be used to increase, decrease, or stabilize wildlife populations. Sometimes they improve habitats to provide food, water, space, and shelter. They work with other scientists to clean up polluted areas. They may capture animals from one location and release them into new territories to expand or create new populations. They may establish fishing, hunting, and trapping seasons to help maintain a healthy population size for a species. Biologists also help people understand and learn more about wildlife. They provide information to landowners on how to improve their property for wildlife, and they help resolve conflicts between people and wildlife. Biologists are not alone in acting for conservation. Conservation in Illinois is a complex process. Habitats are managed for the benefit of species and people. Nature preserves protect unique natural areas. Endangered and threatened species require special protection. Restoration of lands disturbed by surface mining techniques is monitored by trained staff of the IDNR. Our waters and shorelines are important natural features that must be maintained. Invasive species cause many problems on land and in our water resources. Law enforcement officers enforce rules and regulations. Legislators and the governor are needed to write and pass laws that affect conservation. Educators help teachers, students, and the public to become aware of our natural areas, their inhabitants, and their importance now and in the future. They also provide actions that you can take to help save species. Taking personal actions to save species. What can you do to help? Plant native plants in your yard, school grounds, and on public property. Provide nesting, roosting, and den boxes for animal species. Leave dead trees standing when possible to provide food, shelter, and nesting roosting habitat. Before clearing an area of vegetation, consider the effects of your actions on the wildlife living there. Make clean, fresh water available daily for wildlife. Provide brush piles and rock piles for shelter. Research the food and shelter requirements of species you are trying to assist and provide those requirements. Buy hunting and fishing licenses and stamps and hunting and fishing equipment. Your investment in these items includes money dedicated to the conservation of fish and wildlife species. Plant a pollinator garden, butterfly garden, prairie garden, rain garden, or hummingbird garden. Leave a few dead limbs in your yard for native bees to nest in. Provide bare patches of soil for ground nesting bees. Develop a woodland, prairie, pond, or wetland habitat. Don't kill milkweeds. Don't use chemicals unless necessary, and if necessary, use the least toxic ones possible. Take part in citizen science projects. Educate others about wildlife habitat issues. Encourage land managers to increase native wildlife habitat. Support conservation efforts for wildlife, such as the Illinois Wildlife Preservation Fund. Provide dusting habitat and grit for birds. Participate in Christmas tree recycling.